Today's podcast is about dreams. Don't come here today looking for campfire folklore about dreams. Today's episode is filled with science and a little speculation about dreaming, with my guest, dream researcher Daniel Oldis. Life is a quest for logic and reason. It is a quest to find balance between science and faith. Life is a quest for knowledge and understanding. But most importantly, it's a quest for personal discovery. Whatever your quest, knowing yourself is the beginning of all wisdom. Welcome to Quest. Hello everyone, I'm your host, Todd Fischer, and this is Quest. For those of you that might be new listeners, let me tell you a little about me. I'm the founder of Metatomics and the author of the best-selling book, Metatomics, The Grand Design. I'm a philosopher, a theorist, a metaphysicist. I'm a perpetual pupil of theology, and I'm an expert in comparative religious study. I've also extensively researched the mind-body connection, anatomy, and physiology. I documented over 300 case studies while researching my book, all from a scientific perspective, with cases that ranged from near-death and out-of-body experiences to possession to past life experiences, as well as the metaphysical, the paranormal, and other unexplained cases of a spiritual nature. This podcast will bring you some of those astonishing stories, and in some cases by the people that actually lived them. From time to time, I'll be talking about important, perhaps even controversial issues from both spiritual and scientific points of view. The world we live in is ever-changing, and there's often a conflict between spirituality and science, and I wanted to bring you this podcast to balance that equation. It will show you how we know what we know, and there's still so much we don't know. For me, curiosity is part of what makes us human. It's the joy of discovery. It's what drives us. It's our quest. Today's episode is a lot of fun. Did you know you spend around 6 years of your lifespan dreaming? But why you're dreaming is still a mystery. Today, Daniel Oldis helps me unravel a few of the questions I have about dreaming, and he talks about his incredible new scientific experiment where he actually created an animated avatar of an actual dreamer's dream. This is huge, and a major leap forward in decoding dreams. You won't want to miss a second of this interview. I hope you enjoy it. I'd like to welcome Daniel Oldis to the Quest podcast. Daniel is a research scientist, author, and mental health analyst. Welcome to the show, Daniel.
Well, thanks, Todd, for having me on, and this looks like a lot of fun to do.
I'm happy you're here. I have so many questions. So you're a scientist actively researching dreams, and your research has been featured by Wired, Medium, Forbes, CNN, Fox. I've got a list of places where you've had things published or written about or done interviews, and it's incredible. So I want to know, you got to tell me how you got into that specialized area of science.
Well, I started lately the more current stuff has been with a group of scientists at various universities around the country and Europe, but my beginning was back in the 1970s, actually, and I became very interested when I was at the University of South Dakota. I became very interested in lucid dreaming because as a child, I remember having many dreams where I was lucid and I could, control the dream. I could fly. It was a great time, a lot of fun.
Wow.
And then in the 70s, I was in a bookstore in Boulder, Colorado, and I actually ran into a book called Astral Projection by an author named Oliver Fox. And that was his pen name. Even though the book was still what you call parapsychology, part of the book talked about what he called dreams of knowledge, where you knew you were dreaming. And since I remember those, I got very interested. and very interested at the time in astral projection, which was sort of an out of the body type thing.
Right.
But I migrated more towards the science when I found a book published a few years earlier by Celia Green in England called Lucid Dreams. And then another book by Charles Tart, who was at the University of California at the time, called Altered States of Consciousness. And one of the chapters in there was on lucid dreams. So this got me angled more towards the science and a little bit away from the parapsychology of astral projection. And that was in the 70s. I wrote a thesis then, a book manuscript then, called Lucid Dreams, Dreams and Sleep. And it was excerpted in an anthology at the time called Welcome to the Magic Theater. And I got contacted by various readers. And then I stayed interested in that sort of on a fringe basis, though, because my actual graduate education was in English literature, English and American literature. I became an English teacher and a psychology teacher briefly at the University of South Dakota, and then at community colleges in the Midwest, Western Iowa Tech and Northeast Nebraska Tech, and a few other schools like that. So I sort of got sidetracked into teaching English and literature, which I really loved, and sort of stayed just a little bit taking the temperature of dreams over time, but wasn't that actively involved for many years there. And then from teaching, I migrated into computers and software, and came out to California from the Midwest. And it really wasn't until about 15 years ago, I got more interested in dreams again. And my earlier book was out, posted that up on Google Books. It was republished in paperback. And I got contacted by people, other scientists, more recent scientific groups that were studying lucid dreams, and things sort of carried away from them. I joined the IASD, International Association for the Study of Dreams. I was contacted by an owner of a social networking for dreamers called Dreams Cloud to join their company as a social dreaming advisor, which is sort of an interesting role. And wow. And so I did that along with still working with software, teaching part-time or whatever, a little bit of everything. But and while I was involved with Dreams Cloud, I became very interested in social dreaming, such as dream-to-dream communication between two people using technology, or stuff like influencing your friend's dream remotely through your phone.
Wow.
All kinds of fun stuff like that. Of course, there's a lot of technology involved. You have to have devices like cell phone apps that measure your sleep stage, and it has to be streamed up to a common website. And the website then can determine who's dreaming, who's not dreaming, if two people are dreaming at the same time, and stuff like that. So that was a lot of fun. And so since then I got involved in, from dream communication, I got interested in recording, and that's my big project now.
We're gonna touch on that in just a second, for sure.
Okay. Yeah. Anyway, so I've been going at it in different aspects of dreams for many years, off and on. It's a exciting area. I think that the newer generations are more interested in dreams now than, say, the generations that came of age in the 80s or 90s. They seem to be more interested now, from what I can tell by feedback I get from readers and audiences.
Sure. So, to get into research like this, you obviously must have grown up infatuated by your dreams. Are you still actively dreaming? Has your dream state changed since you were a boy and you were flying and all of this? Are you still having wild dreams?
Well, yeah, I mean, that's a good point, because I actually was just invited by the IASD group. There's going to be an online seminar in the fall called the Mini Worlds of Lucid Dreaming. And it's going to be an online conference that people can join up, and there's going to be like about 2 weeks. I was invited to write a paper, and so I was going to do one on sort of what you're talking about. It was called Lucid Dreaming, or Dreaming in the Life Cycle, how dreams change throughout, from childhood to adulthood to older age, where I'm at now. And so it covered, but it was from the angle of identity, personal identity. And it was sort of based on Erik Erikson, who was the psychologist that talked about identity in the life cycle and how it changes over periods of your life. You know, how things that are important to you as a child or a teenager or a young adult are very different as it relates to your sense of self and your identity, and then older age. And dreams, I think, sort of follow that too. So, for example, my dreams now, I'm in my 60s, and my dreams now are not as bizarre, not as crazy. They're more introspective. They're more people I have known from the past, you know, even people who have died as characters in the dream, people I have known from my youth and stuff like that. So it gets probably like everything, you know, changes your interests, your focus in life. And I think that's part of dreaming. The same as lucid dreaming. When I was young, I enjoyed very much flying in the dream, controlling the dream. And then as I grew older, I became more interested in the sort of examining the dream world, sort of introspection, what Robert Wagner calls, examining the inner self, he calls it, a gateway to the inner self. And it's very much like, Carl Jung idea of the self and the ego and self-discovery. And as you get older, then that sort of continues. And then in your older years, like Erikson writes about, that the older ego, the older self, needs to become generative. And what he means by that, it needs to focus on the new generations coming up.
Sure.
It needs to be to give back, you know. And even dreams. I dream often of, nieces, nephews, and in lucid dreams, you could sort of learn things about younger people, your grandchildren, whatever, your nieces and nephews, by talking to the dream characters, and you sort of discover things you may not have noticed about them in waking life that sort of come through your subconscious. So, right, it turns more generative. It turns more focusing outward from the self toward younger generation. So every point in life is involved with dreams in a different way. Sure. Now my conference, I could not come enough material to go for an hour though. So I changed my presentation to be actually sort of a fiction story with lucid dreams, but I'm not sure if they're going to go with that one, because it's a little different. But anyway,
psychologists are genuinely divided over the function and the meaning of dreaming, and some psychologists think that dreams are nothing more than the result of random brain activity that occurs while we're sleeping, and others accept the perspective of people like Sigmund Freud, that dreams can reveal a person's deepest unconscious wishes and desires. Why do you think we dream?
Well, there is no, like you said, there is really no consensus on that. And historically, though, when I first became interested in dreams, what they call depth psychology, which is psychoanalysis, Freud, Adler, Carl Jung, the Gestalt theorists, Fritz Perls, it was all based sort of on, just like you said, our inner desires, maybe suppressed wishes, maybe, like Jung says, maybe archetype dreams, mythological characters in dreams, sort of the common humanity myths of dreams, but it was all what they call depth psychology, interpersonal struggles that your dream is working out for you, sort of like your immune system does for your physical body. The dreams are working as an immune system to help heal your your stresses, your repressed fears, trauma, and stuff like that. And that was still pretty strong, even in the movies back then. You saw movies like Spellbound, which was a movie, I think Gregory Peck was based on dreams, and it was all psychoanalysis that hid repressed wishes and stuff. And then in the later 70s is what you're talking about that you mentioned. Alan Hobson at Harvard came up with his activation synthesis theory, and that basically the dreams are the brainstem just randomly fires into the higher, prefrontal cortex and higher areas of the brain, just fires away random, and the higher brain, because it has all the sensory parts of the brain, vision, sound, touch, everything, is trying to figure this bombardment of impulses coming from the brainstem and make sense of it. So, because we always want to have meaning in everything, right? We do that with everything we do. Right. And so the brain tries to build a story to give some meaning to this nonsense that it's getting random stimulation. So it just creates a story. So if the part of your brain that remembers a picnic is stimulated at the same time that the part of your brain that was a Beatles song is stimulated, the smell of roses. So it says, okay, what can I do with a picnic and roses and a Beatles song? So it creates a story to make sense of this,
so
right?
it could all just be a bunch of mumbo jumbo, really.
Well, it could, although, starting with like the 90s and then there was quite a changes in dream theory. There was some sort of radical ones like Stan Crick, who was the co-discoverer of DNA. His idea on dreams, that dreams are actually to weed out needless memories. So it's like pruning, stuff you're not going to use, stuff you don't need to survive, And
I tend to subscribe to that belief too.
Yeah, because in evolution, you build up a lot of memories and learning experiences that didn't work out, or stuff like that. Yeah. And you need to sort of weed them out of the brain. And so that was Crick's. But then, with the last 10 years, there's been a strong push towards dreams as a simulation, like a threat simulation. So in evolution, early mammals still dream, all mammals dream, we're not sure what, but all animals dream. It was a simulation practicing threat simulation. So it basically is a way to practice avoiding a predator or whatever. And so that's still a fairly popular theory, along with social simulation. Dreams primarily are social situations where you're practicing various social skills or whatever, based on your memories and people you've known.
Sure.
Like that. So that's sort of a popular one now too. And then there's many others, different types of cognitive ones that based on dreams as some type of learning, a learning process, long-term memories, storing memories, rearranging memories, all kinds of, but there still is no consensus.
Sure. I referred to Sigmund Freud a few minutes ago, and many of his theories have been tested and found incorrect. For example, he thought dreams were short, would rather they're longer and they're more frequent. And he would claim that dreams contain some residue of that day's events. And a lot of studies have shown this is true, but only for about half of dreamers there. But Freud also believed, this is what I find most interesting, is Freud believed that you played all the roles in your dreams. Do you believe that? Are we playing all the characters?
Well, Carl Jung also wrote about that too. And, if you think about it, we're actually, it's all coming from our brain, right? And so in a sense, we're doing that. At least we're simulating representations of the characters. One thing I found using sleep lab equipment, especially what they call electromyography, which is muscle sensors, electrodes placed on the muscles, which will detect muscle potential while you're dreaming. So even though you're not actually moving, you're just laying in bed sleeping. When you walk in a dream or you have talk in a dream, all the impulses are still going to all those muscles, speech muscles, arm muscles, leg muscles, everything. And so uh, you know, that, what was your question? Yeah, sorry, I forgot about you.
Well, I was just, if we played all the characters in our dreams.
Oh, yeah,
is what-
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, you may want to edit that out. So anyway, one of the things I found out, I have an article about that too, is that when another character, let's say it's your mother, or let's say it's your girlfriend, or somebody you meet on the bus or whatever, is talking in the dream, the impulses are actually going to all your physical speech muscles on your throat and your mouth. It's like a ventriloquist.
Wow,
So,
interesting.
you know what I mean? So it's appropriating your speech muscle, the other character.
Sure.
So
you
like,
must be playing all the characters.
yeah, or like we take turns. We give the other
Sure.
character, you know, control over our body
Yeah.
for a minute or two.
Let's talk about dream time. Why do events in dreams seem to take a long time when in reality you might only be in a sleep cycle that lasts a few hours? I've had dreams that I swore were 19 hours long, and I was running and gunning. I didn't even lose my breath in these dreams, but they seem to take forever. And I wake up and I've been asleep for barely 2 hours. What is it about the mind that takes away? Why does it turn our brain into a Vegas casino where there's no clocks and I have no concept of time while I'm in there?
Well, yeah, you could be back when you were in grade school, you know, attending class or something, you know, and not think anything of it. So yeah, there are many different theories. I like the movie Inception. You know, the time in dreams is, you know, 20 years every level you go down and in 50 years. But you know what I found out in the lab stuff, especially with this electromyography, which is the abbreviation is EMG, is that we actually, when we move in dreams, when we have body movement, motor behavior, we actually move slower. And other studies have shown this out. So if you look at the chart of the muscle, like leg muscles, you're walking across the room in a dream, say, you're walking about 50% slower than you would if you covered the same space. Now, it seems in the dream like it's normal, right? You're just walking normal. Usually it seems normal. But the thing about it, the reason for that is your brain simulates space to be shorter. So it's like Einstein's relativity. Time is slower, but space is shortened. So it feels the same. Yeah.
Wow. Fascinating.
Yeah, I call that the relativity of dream time. And so, you know, and that's basically laboratory, laboratory evidence of this. Now, nobody really knows why we move slower in dreams. They think maybe we're not getting feedback from actual carpeting, like when we walk across our room, right? Or that there's neural processes. One of the brain cells very involved with dreaming that's becoming more evident is called the glial cells, or the glia cells. You see it spelled different ways. And it's the cells surrounding the neurons. And they seem to be involved with dreaming. And these cells communicate with the neurons and also with each other through calcium waves, calcium interactions. And it's slower than the neurons. So it's possible that if the glial cells are running the show, if they're the directors in a sense of the dream story, that they just do everything slower, you know? Wow. And it's hard to say, but it is interesting to get some of that evidence that our body movements and possibly our feeling of time is slower in the dream. And so I always found that interesting.
Why do we have trouble remembering our dreams?
Well, there's another one. There's really no consensus, you know. I think that one of the ones you read about the most is that because dreams are nonlinear, they jump around. So like in waking life, somebody said, "What'd you do yesterday?" You go, "Let's see now." Let me see. I was watching TV, then I got up and I microwaved myself a hot dog, you know, health food. And then I turned on TV. Everything is linear. In the dream, because it jumps around, you can't make those connections to remember. You don't have those hooks.
Sure.
You know, the other thing, it's probably just a couple things more. One is our natural state is sort of to worry about stuff. When we wake up in the morning, the first thing we think is, now what do I got to do today? is, you know, because you forget after you go to bed, you wake up now. What do I need to remember? You know, is anybody sick? What do I have to do? You know, so you immediately start processing those worries and those daily concerns, and you forget about the dream. The last thing is related to body position, because when you dream, you're laying normally just, you know, flat on the bed, although the dream story is vertical. You're walking around or whatever in the dream. So that orientation, so in the morning, as soon as you start moving your body or sit up in bed, your orientation is different. And also because dream movement is slower, it's harder to reposition yourself back into the dream while you're awake, you know, your body position.
Sure.
So I think all those things relate to it. There's also physiological things that have been published. The parts of the brain that store memories for longer term memories and in dreams are not as active, you know. So it could just be a brain thing. It could be different reasons there, but you are correct. We do tend to forget them very fast.
It's interesting to me that almost every organ in the body functions on a 24/7 basis with virtually no rest. That heart's going to keep beating no matter what, right? Except for the brain, which requires sleep. So there are many religious scholars that think that that shutdown time is necessary for the soul to process its day's experiences, or it could be a way of communication, a way to offload or download information from a source. All different types of religions and faiths and philosophies have theories on this. Are you spiritual? Do you think there's a spiritual component to dreaming or matters of the soul that have something to do with the dreaming?
Oh, I do. You know, it's not something I write on or preach about or anything. It's my own experiences. I do. Science still doesn't know. There's no consensus on why we sleep. I mean, there are a lot of neurotransmitters that are refreshed and so forth, memories consolidated, but the evolutionary risk of being asleep while predators are out prowling around and take a big bite out of you sleep has to provide such a strong evolutionary advantage, right?
Right.
That it retained in natural selection, that it continued on despite being vulnerable for hours during the day while you're sleeping. So science really hasn't come up with any final purpose for sleep or dream. So I think it opens the door that there may be other purposes, you know, such as spiritual or whatever, especially for dreams. Yeah. You know, dreams have played such a huge role throughout history. And actually Western civilization de-emphasizes dreams much more than other cultures, you know. You know, with materialistic culture, but other cultures are very much focused on dreams throughout history. You know, there's a Sinoi tribe, I think, in somewhere in South Pacific, that every morning everybody gets up and tells their dreams. And if you injure somebody or in your dream steal from somebody, right, you have to pay them back in real life. So, you know, somebody said, I dreamt that you took took a sheep from me. You got to pay them back.
Wow.
So other cultures really involve dreams, you know, very much.
It's interesting because some of these great mysteries, dreaming and astral projection, and a lot of these things that require, if not being in a kind of a sleep mode or a dreamscape, or at least being in a deep trance of some sort, and then you kind of have that effect of it's like sleep paralysis. Like, you know, you're telling me that we know that muscles are getting signaled and your voice center is getting signaled, like these things are happening, but you're not getting up and necessarily running down the street like you are in your dream. So there's such a controlled environment happening within the brain with these types of events. It's like really, it's very magical what's happening in there, and yet we still can't get to the bottom of it with science. And I find the whole thing rather fascinating.
Well, it is, and the brain inhibits most of the movement. You know, you see twitches or something like that. Even watch a dog, you know, acts like it's chasing something. So
Sure.
there are sometimes twitches, but and the impulses are going, but they're much weaker, to the muscles. So otherwise, you'd have what they call as REM behavior disorder, which you actually get up and act out your dream, right?
Yeah.
Or sleepwalking in deep sleep. So the brain has to sort of inhibit the muscle response.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's amazing what goes on, in sleep and dreams. And dreams are, in a sense, magical in a way. They're just so unique or bizarre, and although a lot of it just like real life, and that's one problem with the learning to lucid dream. So many dreams just feel so real and normal that it's hard to verify. Often I'll think, well, I may be dreaming here, right? Just because something happened really, really strange or whatever.
Right.
And then how do I prove it, right? Well, one of the things I do, for one reason, because I realized that body movement is slower, I'll sort of take a leap forward. And if I could feel it's taking me just longer for that leg to hit the ground than would be normal under gravity, then I pretty much know I'm dreaming,
Right.
But different people have different ways to do that,
Well, let's talk about the project. So this is really amazing. This was the whole catalyst for me wanting to get you on the podcast today, because this is what it's all working up to, is this part. So this is really amazing. So in your recent project, you animated a nocturnal dream in a sleep lab where an avatar is behaving as the dreamer behaved in the dream. I think I described that well enough. This is incredible. How did you accomplish this?
Well, actually, that was as far as recording dreams, that's the easiest, right? Because that's just basically a matter of putting these electromyography sensors, EMG, electrodes on the muscles of the body, and then also a sleep lab, so you can detect when REM sleep is starting, and you have your EEG and all the other measurements, right?
Sure.
And basically, a program. In this case, the sleep lab was at University of Texas, Austin. But my brother took the raw data, right from the muscles, and just mapped it into an avatar and watched to see what happens.
Wow.
And then the dreamer who is surprised to watch himself actually, on a screen walking. We don't have necessarily the same image in the avatar, as the person that was actually sleeping in the sleep lab.
Sure.
But the movements. And so that was actually sort of straightforward. And the programming was, a little complex because it really hadn't been done before. But my brother David Oldis did that. They did a great job on that. And basically, you could do that with any event. In dreams, I'd always be interested in seeing what the muscles are doing when somebody's flying in a dream, right?
Sure.
That would be interesting. But that's really the easier part of full dream recording, in the sense of when you think of making a movie from a dream. The body movements is the more straightforward. The next step up in complexity is reconstructing dream speech, conversations.
Right.
Your dream ego in the dream talking to somebody, and the other character talking back that also uses your speech muscles. Because now you put your electrodes on all the speech muscles, right, which are, around the jaw, around the mouth, on the cheek, the larynx, it's like that. You could, many as you can get hold of, right?
Sure.
And then you have to interpret what the different muscle patterns are for different, say, English phonemes. Convert those to sounds, words, sentences, right?
Sure.
And it's a similar problem to what many scientists have worked on, called silent speech decoding. They're not interested in dreams. They're interested in being able to communicate silently from thinking about talking to another person, right?
Wow.
Because when you think about talking, your muscles are also sort of getting the impulses. They call that silent speech. And it's a complex program because you have to decode the muscle patterns into English English sounds, English syllable sentences and words, right? So that's complex. We're working on that right now and with the University of Texas. And the next step then would be to add that to the avatar. We see him walking, we see him. Now, actually, the avatar we have, you can see he's talking, but we don't know what he's saying. So you add the speech, and now you have the audio. You have the movement, you have the audio of what he's saying or what other characters are saying to him. So now you've recorded two elements of the movie. The next step is a whole nother level up even. And that's what like groups in Japan are doing and other universities. And that is the visual imagery, what you see in the dream, right?
Sure.
And for that, you need a little heavy duty equipment rather than just a bunch of electrodes on the body. For that, you need stuff like an MRI machine where you can do imaging, brain imaging, or in some cases, what they call near infrared, which is an optical device you wear in your head that uses infrared pulses, right, to measure brain activity, and you can do imaging. So other groups are working on that, and if you can get the visual imagery, and you get the conversations of the dream, and you get the body movie, you have a very basic, rudimentary movie of a dream.
Yeah, that's fascinating. In your research, are multiple portions of the brain involved in dreaming?
Well, yeah, they're all pretty much involved. The prefrontal cortex is doing a lot of the activity, and the visual areas of the brain. But the audio areas are used. People report smells in dreams. Of course, the motor areas of the brain are involved. They feel for normal dreams, like non-lucid dreams, that the areas of the brain for the higher rationality or logic are a little weak, right? Because our logic seems a little strange sometimes. We let things happen and we don't really doubt their reality, right?
Right.
Unless we become lucid, right? So some areas are maybe more active in dreams or less, but most areas of the brain are engaged one way or the other. Now, my own feeling about why we accept the bizarreness of dreams is not related to the brain areas being inactive, but the way we grow up. In other words, in the French psychologist Jean Piaget, who wrote I think it was in the 50s, he was writing, maybe 40s or 50s, about children's developmental growth, the stages children go through. And he saw the stage right when early children really believe dreams are really real, even when they wake up, right? So if they're being chased by a bear, they run to their parents, the bear is chasing me, right? They think the bear is still after them. They didn't realize that it was in their mind, right? And then the next stage is when they finally realize it. Oh, when I have those weird experiences and the bear is chasing me, that's just in my head. That's not really real, right? Yeah. And so we sort of place that world separated from waking. And so as we learn the logic of the normal world, stuff like when you push toast down, it pops up, when you jump off a building, you fall. We learn that stuff while we're waking. But when we go to bed at night, we say, oh, well, now I'm back to this other world where anything can happen, right?
Right.
So our mind just relaxes and sort of lets things go, because our earliest life, seemed like a real world, when we were very tiny children. And so we've just sort of regressed back to that. When we go to sleep, we wake up, we go, okay, now it's time to accept waking logic, right? As we learn it. So we just sort of go back and forth. And so I think that the developmental aspect of dreams and lucid dreaming, I think, is something that's important too, to look into.
Yeah. Well, so where do you hope to advance this project to? What's the ultimate goal? Do you really want to be able to, give people a music video of their dreams? Will there be a day when we say, Alexa, replay my dream? Where do you go with this? What would be your final purpose or goal with wanting to capture these dream states?
Well, I think it's probably just the base is sort of like Mount Everest because it's there, right? If you could make a movie of a dream,
Sure.
like Mount Everest is there. It's just like in the space program, even, you know, a lot of going to the moon, going to Mars. Many people say there's no sense there, you know, there's nothing there.
And it's exploration. So
yeah,
you're exploring the brain.
Exactly. It's inner space.
Yeah.
It's like a moonshot to inner space. And so in that sense, just because it's there and it could be exciting to do, I think if we can get to the point though where we can make rough recordings of dreams, it's helpful to people because we dream, you know, a third of our night in sleep as part of our life, and we'll be able to review those, to watch those, to learn about ourselves. You know, for therapists, it'd be very worthwhile probably to get an inside view into the mind, you know, the concerns, the problems, the traumas or whatever, and for post-traumatic stress, you know, I think it'd be very worthwhile.
Right.
So I do think that there could be, it would also bring that subconscious back and sort of into public media where it's sort of been pushed down. Everything is social now, everything is conscious and social. And that inner person that, like Carl Jung had an essay called The Undiscovered Self. In other words, as soon as you repress that inner self and people that they don't talk about it, it's all, you know, social items or politics or whatever, and they push that deep person deep inside, it's not healthy. And so the fact that you could bring that unconscious back, put it part of the public dialogue, you know, onto media, onto social, that I think that it helps us, you know, refocus on the inner person, you know, the inner self more, I think, you know. But there is a negative side too that people have commented on, and that is if you can record your dream and you have to go to sleep sooner or later, there's nothing stopping, in a sense, someone else recording your dream that you may not want recorded. Like,
right,
a government, say, could use it for interrogation, because
right,
people who will speak instead of torture them, they have to go sleep.
yeah,
And you have a window into their mind. And you talk about a privacy invasion, right? Much worse than tapping into your cell phone, going into your mind, you know.
Yeah.
So there is sort of that, you know, there is sort of a negative aspect, I think, to recording dreams. But I think that this is such a part of our life. You know, it's a huge. If you took all the dream time, it'd be years and years of your life. You know, that you actually dream. And so I think that that could be useful. I think it's quite a ways before you get a consumer product, because right now the hardware, you know, whether you're talking about near infrared, which is NIRS is the abbreviation, or MRIs, it's not likely you're going to move an MRI machine into your bedroom and sleep in that, you know.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah.
So it'll be a while for the technology to downsize.
Yeah.
And you'll probably like wear pajamas or whatever with electrodes to do the body movement, and strap around the chin and stuff for speech with electrodes. So at some time it'd be a while before it's commercial, but it's interesting to me because of that, trying to reveal that unconscious self. And I think that this is also true of it's, like I said, sort of a type of magic. It's I think Einstein says there are two kind of people: those people that think nothing is magical, and those people who think that everything is. I'm sort of one that everything is, you know. And I think that also the spiritual side of it. I think that, you know, so many things throughout history where spiritual entities, whether gods, angels, have appeared in dreams and stuff like that, that it's a deep spiritual part of ourselves that also deserves, I think, to see the light of day, you know.
Yeah.
Because it can be very powerful.
What a perfect place to wrap up this interview. just beautiful words. And Daniel, I can't thank you enough for coming on and telling me about your dream research. It's really fascinating, and you have an open invitation to come back when you want to tell more dream stories or have more things to talk about. You know, this is a podcast, so if you ever get audio, we can at least play an audio clip of what someone's saying in a dream across my podcast, right?
Right. Well, hopefully we'll get somebody that's singing in their dream, or somebody singing with a choir. They're all trying to use the speech muscle at the same time.
Oh, yeah. Who knows? It might be something really, you might get someone speaking in tongues. You just never know, you know?
There you go. You never know. That's right.
That could happen.
Anyway, thank you for having me.
People, yeah, no problem. How can people find you? Are you out, you have a .com? Are you on social media? Where can people find what you're doing? How can they see your avatar moving and find out and read your stuff? Where are you at out there in the world?
I'm pretty much only on two places. I'm on LinkedIn, and I'm on academia.com.
Okay.
Academia.edu, whatever it is. And so those, and there I have, I think, contact info, and I have a lot of my papers and stuff, and they can get links on there to the avatar and the other work that's going on with dream recording.
Great. Well, definitely stay in touch with us and keep us posted on your research. Great stuff you're doing, and I really appreciate your time tonight.
Well, good. Well, thank you for having me, Todd.
Yeah. No, thanks, Daniel. You have a good night.
Okay. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
There you have it. I had a lot of fun doing this interview. What do you think dreams are? Leave me a voice message at anchor.fm/Metatomics or email me at questwithtodd@gmail.com. Thanks for listening. Thank you for listening to Quest. Please be sure and rate and review this podcast. This podcast is copyright. Any previously trademarked or copyright content is used by permission. Be sure to visit the official website for the International Association of Metatomics at metatomics.org, or find us on social media for other unique content. And make sure to pick up a copy of the book that started a spiritual revolution, Metatomics, The Grand Design, available for sale online and at most major bookstores. Thanks for listening.